My name is Nelda Spell Mitchell. I've got two books here that have stories in them. The books say, Have I Told Y'all This? By Nelda Spell Mitchell. You have to get both books to get all the stories, Volume 1 and Volume 2. And if you'll just check with Mr. Amazon, he will send them right to your door. He'll want a little money, but it won't cost much. And you will enjoy reading them, and they make wonderful gifts for somebody that you don't know what to give them that they would really enjoy. So get those. And today I'm going to read you a story out of here about our credit cards. Now, this was 1983. Dennis and I were pacing from the coffee shop to the restroom in the Jackson, Mississippi airport. We had gotten there 2 hours before our plane was scheduled to leave. We had told each other we were that early in case we had had a flat tire between home and Jackson, which was 60 miles away. The truth was that we had worn out the floor at home from pacing from the coffee pot to the bathroom at home. Well, we couldn't stand the sight of all the familiar surroundings. Things would never be the same anymore. 2 days before, we had loaded up our daughter Beverly, her children Luke and Paige, and their suitcases. And Dennis had pronounced a benediction. Beverly, you're passing a milestone today. In fact, we all are. Things will never be the same. We cried. We carried them to New Orleans, where they caught an airplane to Minneapolis, Minnesota. Beverly, our only daughter, was going to marry a Yankee, Keith Collier. I'm going to show you a picture there when they're standing up there for their wedding. The ladies are Keith's 3 sisters. His 4 brothers are up there and 1 brother-in-law. And you can see Luke and Paige. It was at a Lutheran church in Lakefield, Minnesota. All right, now we'll get back to the story. Since Keith was the second of 8 children, and the other 7 lived close, not far from their parents or within driving distance in that little small farming town of Lakefield. And since all these siblings were going to get together on Friday night, May the 27th, 1983, to see the youngest of the 8, which was a girl, she was going to graduate from high school, and they were all going to her graduation. And since them plus a lot more relatives would be there on Sunday, May the 29th, for Keith's grandmother's 80th birthday. And since Keith lived and worked in Tampa, Florida, and wanted to go for a big weekend, and since Keith wanted all his folks to attend the wedding, it was decided that Beverly and 4-year-old Paige and 5.5-year-old Luke would fly to Minnesota and have a big church wedding on Saturday, May the 28th, 1983, in Lakefield, Minnesota at Keith's home church. Some of Keith's folks met Beverly and Luke and Paige at Minneapolis and carried them the 3-hour drive to the small farming town of Lakefield in southwest corner of the state of Minnesota. Now, they had left home on Tuesday. Now it was Thursday afternoon, and Dennis and I had done everything we needed to do so we would have an uneventful trip. And if we would just quiet down the butterflies in our stomachs, and if we could just relax, we could enjoy the trip and the wedding. In the coffee shop at the airport, Dennis started reciting lists with a question for each item. He expected an answer from me. Yes, we do have the suitable clothes in the suitcases. Yes, our tickets were for round trip. Yes, we had motel reservations near Keith's home. Yes, there would be a budget rental car waiting for us in Minneapolis to drive the 3 hours to Lakeville. Dennis could feel comfortable with all my answers except the car. I had no confirmation slip. I had no physical evidence that a car would be waiting for us. Well, by this time we had 15 minutes before we were due to get on our plane. So Dennis said, well, let's walk down to the budget rent-a-car office there at the airport and ask them to call Minneapolis for us. We did. They called. A car was ready for us. Then the clerk said, since you'll be arriving in Minneapolis after 5 p.m., you'll need to pay with a credit card. Budget won't take cash after 5 p.m. Dennis opened his billfold to reassure himself. No credit card at all. Nelda, do you have your credit card? I opened my billfold and I pulled out a McRae's and a Waldorf's and an outdated Visa card. McRae's and Waldorf's were clothing stores in Hattiesburg. I remarked to Dennis that I had not seen a new Visa card in the mail. Well, then Dennis had to confess that when the new cards came in, he had thrown them in the trash. He had never used his, and he didn't want me to use mine. Well, Dennis asked the clerk if we could pay cash in Jackson and pay for the car there before we left. It was the clerk's first week on the job, and she did not know. Her boss had gone to lunch and wouldn't be back for another hour. Why didn't we just check with the budget office in Dallas while you're there with your layover of 2 hours to change planes? The lady said. You could just do that. Well, we'd have to. It was time to leave Jackson. Our stomachs were just full of butterflies again. We got off our plane in Dallas. We agreed to find a gate where our plane would be taken off from before we hunted budget. We followed yellow lines on the floor and yellow lines overhead. After walking for a quarter of a mile, we asked for help. We were assured that we were on the correct path and our gate was straight ahead. After another quarter of a mile, we saw a budget sign. It said, budget rent-a-car, see red phone. Oh, we were in luck. We had found our gate and budget too. We walked faster down that yellow line, following overhead yellow arrows, and red budget rent-a-car sign said, see red phone. The airlines had a purpose in giving people 2-hour layovers between planes. They had already walked from one end to the other, and they knew how long it would take. Oh, Eureka! There was a red phone nearby. Dennis picked it up, held it to his ear, and heard a recorded voice tell him that the budget office was next door to the terminal in another building just a few seconds away. Well, ha, ha, ha. That was a joke. It had been 30 minutes since we had seen a door on that side of the terminal to even get out of the terminal. Oh well, it was time to go. We'd think of something. Dennis suggested that we would get a taxi to take us to a motel in Minneapolis, and when the budget office opened the next morning, we'd rent a car and drive to Lakeville. Well, that was a good idea. I kept thinking about Beverly and Luke and Paige and the plans that we had discussed. My mother's instinct forced me to challenge Dennis and suggest that we at least try to rent a car. I had been told over the phone that a car would be waiting, and it knew our schedule, and the voice on the phone did not mention credit cards after 5 p.m. The girl in Jackson was new. Maybe she didn't know, or maybe things were different in Minneapolis. And it would be such a hardship on Beverly if we weren't there on schedule. We kept tossing our options around on the plane, and it seemed like we would never get there. But just like our ticket said, we landed in Minneapolis around 7 p.m. Dennis said that I was welcome to try, but I'd just be embarrassed when they told me no. And he reluctantly walked with me. 2 beautiful young ladies, a blonde and a brunette, were sitting behind the rent-a-car counter. As we approached, the brunette stood, mechanically reached for a rental form, started filling out the date, and she never had looked at me, but she had her head down writing. And in her fast northern brogue, she said, "May I help you?" In my natural southern drawl, that is 2 tads slower than most southerners, I said, "Yes, ma'am. We're here to pick up the car that y'all are supposed to have ready and waiting for Dennis Mitchell." Before I had said 3 syllables, her head jerked up, a surprised look on her face, her mouth was open, and she had to smile, and the blonde sitting down was the same thing. She had jerked up and was staring at me with a big smile. And the brunette asked in a voice of disbelief, "Where are you from?" Her "where" was emphasized so that I felt like a Purple People leader was looking at me. And this startled me, and my reply was slower than ever. I said, "Collins, Mississippi." As she turned around to check her file, she and the blonde just laughed. There was our request in her M file. The brunette filled out all the appropriate blanks, then in her fine office voice said, "Credit card, please. Credit card, please." I laid my walled-offs and my Matt Ray's charge cards on the counter. She habitually reached over and raked them close to her, and she looked at them, and she blurted out, "Oh, these aren't any good." I said, "Yes, ma'am, they are good. I just used them last week," I solemnly replied. "But you don't understand." The brunette was patiently explaining, as if I were a child. "We need your Visa or MasterCard, or," and she rattled off several names that sounded like types of salad dressing. I said, "What for?" "These cards will prove that we are real people." But I put the walled-offs and Matt Ray's cards back in my billfold. And I said, I've got cash money to pay for the rental car. I'm sorry, but we don't take cash, she said. I said, are you telling me that I cannot pay for renting your car with cash money? Yes. Well, I declare, who ever heard tell of such a thing, lady? It's good money. It's genuine United States money. We are still in the United States, aren't we? The blonde put her head on her desk and laughed. The brunette said with a smile, it's budget's policy not to take cash after 5 p.m. Well, I was in a desperate situation now, for Dennis was standing 10 paces behind me, and I could feel his "I told you so" guillotine hovering over my head. I knew without looking that he was polishing his horns. I took a deep breath. I looked that beautiful brunette in the eyes, and I began my desperation oratorio. I said, my dear lady, you are now looking at one of the most ignorant persons you will probably ever get the chance to look at. I'm from the backwoods of Mississippi, from what you might call the sticks. I've never been outside the country, never ridden on a plane, and never tried to rent a budget rent-a-car. Now here I stand before you with hard-earned money, and it is honest money, and you tell me that you can't take it. Dear lady, my husband and I are up here in this foreign land because our daughter is about to marry one of your kind, a Yankee. But the church is 3 hours away, and we need your car to get there. This wedding has been planned for a long time, and I peddle peanuts to get money for this trip. I have the exact amount needed. I've been sleeping on that money several months now. It has been between the mattresses of my bed. And you say that a credit card is better? I assure you that I had no idea that right here in the United States, I'd be told that a credit card is better than money. I had stopped because she turned her head. And I can't stand to talk to someone's back of the head if it appears they're not looking. She couldn't listen because she was laughing. The blonde lady was laughing, and she had to turn away to keep from laughing in my face. When she regained her composure, she suggested, perhaps you could spend the night here and pick up the car in the morning. Here? I rolled my eyes around as if to indicate the terminal. Oh, no, in a nearby motel. I'll be glad to call a taxi for you, she said. Now, that would be mighty nice of you to do that, but we don't have enough money to do that. I was telling you the truth when I said we'd save the exact amount needed for the trip. We can't even buy an extra Coca-Cola. But I tell you what, you seem like such a nice, friendly lady. Maybe we could spend the night with you. Do you live close by? Down in Mississippi, we take in strangers. I don't know if you Yankees do or not, I said. The blonde was bent down over her desk with her hands on each side of her face, trying to conceal her silent laughter. The brunette didn't answer me. She had to turn around and bend down beside the blonde to conceal her laughter. After her conference with the blonde, the brunette approached the counter, and what I interpreted to be a sincere feeling sorry for you voice, she said, when you called for your reservation for the car, weren't the policies explained to you? No, ma'am, because I didn't call budget, I said. When I got my airplane ticket, the American Airlines voice on the phone said that she would take care of it and that all we'd have to do was to find Budget's rental booth and tell them our names. And that was all, except that the voice did say that the Budget rentals were usually good and easy to deal with. I told her. Since I was still desperate and Dennis had his horns polished to a fine point, I said, might it work out good for us to go spend the night with you, lady? 'Cause you might like to go with us to our daughter's wedding. That would be good. If we spend the night with you, then you could go to our daughter's wedding. It's Saturday. Are you working this weekend? You'd probably enjoy it. You may even know Keith's folks. They're the Colliers down in Lakefield. Have you ever met them? The blonde and the brunette had another conference. The brunette said, due to the circumstances, we'll take your cash. Let's see, that will be $134.29. I had a $100 bill, and Dennis knew it. He stepped to the counter with a handful of 1s and 5s and 10s. He had put his horns away and had attached his angle wings. He said, here, Nelda, I've got the 100 and I think you might have most of the 34. Check and see. I may have the 29 cents too. He did. We had to check all over our pockets to make the correct change. We weren't about to let the pretty lady know that we had enough money packed in our pockets to buy the car. The car was a medium-sized Buick. We got to Lakefield on time. Everything went as scheduled. The wedding was beautiful. And when we returned the car, we got back the $34.29 with a smile. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed that. And don't forget, punch the subscribe button, and if you like and you have any comments, write them on. And while you're doing that, check out our grandson's post. Weston Mitchell has a post called Big South Ranching. So you might enjoy looking at that sometime. He just films day to day. Well, not day to day, but every once in a while when he's working with his cows, he will film different activities. Thank you.